If you ever intend to transfer your Google Sheets data from one sheet to your current sheet, then you can easily achieve this by using Importrange. In this video, we are going to learn Importrange in details. We will learn how you can easily transfer data from one sheet to another, and also we will learn how you can easily transfer data from different tabs and append these tabs to each other and present as one data in your current sheet. So let's deep dive and learn this. In this case, I have a sales details in these sheets and I want to transfer them into these other sheets. So let's use Importrange and do the calculations, or let's do Importrange and populate our data into these other sheets. So if we go by syntax, let's go to Importrange. So first of all, what is required is spreadsheet URL, and from the examples you can see that the URL is put into quotation. In this case, we go back to our sheets and we copy the URL of our sheets. Most people prefer to copy until here, but for me, yeah, I don't care. You have to copy everything. So let's copy everything and use it as our URL. All right, so double quotation and then make sure your URL goes inside here. Next parameter is the range string, and this range string is which range are you trying to import. And in this case, we need to specify the tab and we need to specify the exact ranges that we need to import into this other sheet. So if we go back to our sheets here, we can see the first details you want to import is the tab name is Africa, and the data is from A1 until C26. And in this example here, we can check everything is again put into quotation. So let's go by that quotation and tab name, and then from here you need to input the range. We say A1 to C26, and once you click enter, if you haven't done this before, it will ask for access and you just have to grant the access for the data to be imported here. All right, now after I grant the access, my data has been populated here. So let's go back to the formula and let's simplify. You know, the formula, the way it's long, let's just simplify. And the first method is you need to have this URL as a cell reference in your own sheet here. So what I will do is I will copy this link, and then this link, let us put as a link here somewhere. Paste there, and then maybe use tab to present as a chip. Now, once we come back to our formula, we will replace all this with the cell reference. And remember, if it's cell reference, you don't need to put anything into quotation. And in this case, our URL is in G1. So if we click enter, then it works as usual. Also, if we go back to our other tab, we can see we have two tabs, and we intend to import everything first of all. So we have managed to import the first tab, and now let's see how we can import the second tab also. So if we come here and change this to our tab name, which is Asia, then we are able to pick from there. But let's make it easy. Why not have the tab's name here and have a dynamic range? So if you want to select Africa, you click here. If you want to select Asia, you click here. And if you want to select everything, then you click here. So let me just go back to data validation, and our options are Africa and Asia. Also, let us include an option to select all regions so that everything will populate here. And let's say select all regions. So we have these three options in this tab here, in this cell here. So what I want to do is this data should reflect what is selected here. So if it's Africa, I need it to populate the data from Africa tab. If it's Asia, I need to populate data from Asia tab. The last option, I think I will come back to that towards the end of this video, so don't worry about that. The easiest thing now here is Asia, or our tab name is in F1. So what we need to replace this Asia only, and the quotation remain as that. And remember I said if it's a cell reference, you do not need to use quotation. And here it's F1, but now this F1 you need to concatenate it to your ranges. So by that you do shift 7. That means you are able to import your data based on the tabs that you will select in F2. So let's click enter. That is Asia. So if we select Africa now, in this case it will bring the data from Africa for us. So let's check. Perfect. So that is it. So this is working as intended. Next question is maybe how can you append the data from African tab and the Asian tab all into one place? For that one, let's do here. So the first format is, let's just copy the formula here. This is the formula we are using currently. So I will do two examples side by side and then I will demonstrate. First, let's pick the data for Africa and let's just replace here by Africa, and here let's select data for Asia. I will remove this and then I will select this as Asia. So now what we intend to do is this data and this should be combined. That means we bring Africa until here, and then from here we add this data from Asia, which means we can easily combine these two formulas. So let's just combine these two formulas and then we will see what happens. Now there's one thing. In this case, how do you want to combine our data? Is it side by side or on top of each other? In our case, we want to combine our data on top of each other. So the first one selected will come on top, then the second selected will come second, etc. And to do that in Google Sheets, you need to use a special character here. This semicolon is able to stack your data on top of each other. But if you use comma, this comma will put your data side by side. For example, in this case, as you can see, we have the data for Africa here, we have the data for Asia here. That is what the comma will do. But we are not interested in that at the moment. We are interested in stacking our data on top of each other. And then let us paste our formula for Asia. So if you look at this formula here, it's saying this one will import from Africa, stack of top of each other, and then import from Asia. If we enter now, it will return an error, and I will explain why. So at this moment, your formula is in array, and array formulas in Google Sheets must be enclosed in curly braces. And curly braces means, in this case, all these formulas needs to be enclosed in curly braces for it to bring their desired result you want. So this is the curly braces on this side and on the other side. So once you do this, this formula has been converted to array formula. It will be able to stack your values on top of each other. So let's enter and see now. Remember we said from C26, and actually this is not a best practice. If you are using maybe dynamic data, you just need to keep it open. So let's keep all of it open and click enter. So once we are done, this is the first value for Africa, and still there are spaces, and then we have the value for Asia down here. Now there's no way we can eliminate the spaces in import range, and this is why we have to nest our import range into other complex functions. And in this case, we are going to use query function to eliminate the empty spaces that comes between the two of our values. Before we go to query, I want you to notice something. This data here has the headers, and this one also has the headers. So in this case, it means we don't need any of these headers, and we can just go back to our formula and edit where our data should start from. So let's get rid of the headers and pick only the values. The headers we can just copy from here. Let's paste values only. So these are the headers, and now you need to eliminate these spaces. And in this case now we want to use the query function. So before I nest my import range function, let me explain the query formula bit. So this is how it's written. Now data here will refer to our formula which is here, which we have already input in forms of import range. So I will skip that for the time being. Now query here is, we just say this is SQL format. It's a bit complex but not hard. Of course, you are able to learn. And in this example, I'm not going to explain in details, but I will cover the query functions in my next video. Please follow for more explanation on this query formula. So now we want to say select everything, and everything in this case means the import data that we have already written before. So we say and selecting everything in query is Shift and 8. We select everything, and then now we put a condition that will eliminate the empty spaces that comes between our data from Africa and Asia. And in that case, we will use the where clause, where, and we just want to say one of the columns is not empty. That means if it's not empty, it will return. If it's empty, it will not return. And in our case, we'll just say column 1 is not null. Now, once we do this, our query will pick the import data and returns everything after filtering out empty rows. And that is all. So if I enter here, it will be an error. Now I want to copy this formula and incorporate our import range function inside here. So let me just copy the formula here. Or easily, let me just paste the import range formulas we had here. So this is our formula. This is where it should be. So we are saying this is our data and select everything where column 1 is not null. Also remember, we are using column 1 because we are not able to reference it by the column name. For example, you cannot say ABC. Why? Because you use that only when it exists in your current sheet, and you need to exactly use this way, and it is case sensitive. Capital C or L. If you, for example, put capital O or capital L, it will not work. If you put the space also, it will not work. So you need to comply with this format the way it is. So once we have done this, let me just copy this formula and paste here. Now what this means is this query function will return our combined data from our sheet here and eliminates any empty rows between them. So let's enter and see. So if we enter, scroll down, you can see the Asia starts from here and there's no spaces between them. Now, next step is in this data here, if we select Africa, it will bring for us the data from Africa. And if we bring Asia, it will bring the data for us from Asia. Now we want to select here, and it selects every data without filtering. For example, in this case. So I think this is quite easy. What I will first do is I need to remove this formula from here. Sorry. I need to remove this formula from here and paste the formula here. Remove the headers. Is that okay? So I'll just copy the headers here and paste. Now once we are here, what we intend to say is if this is all, then I need to return this other formula. I think it's clear. So the point is Africa, it will select Africa. Asia, it will select Asia, and select all regions. I need it to select this formula. And this is where the if functions come into our risk now. So what we are saying is if f1 here in this case is equals to select all regions, I needed to run this formula here, else it will run the other formula here. So let me just keep it like that. I need to grab the formula. Sorry, I need to grab the formula. Let me just copy notepad. Once I do this, I want to say if this column cell F1 is select all regions, please play this formula for me. Okay. Else, if it's not this other one, then I needed to play this other formula. Perfect. So what we are saying is if F1 is select all regions, run this other formula until here. So I think let's put into other quotation to ensure that this is not confused as a next parameter by if formula. So all the query function is put into quotation. So just enter and let's transfer this other formula to here. I will transfer the formula to our main page, which is here. So let's transfer, done. Let's just delete everything from here also. So the point here is if the region is Africa, return the values from African tab only. If the region is Asia, returns the values from Asia only. But if our selection is saying select all regions, then returns combine data from both tabs. So let's test our formula now. So if you select all regions now, you are able to return everything without any spaces between them. And you can also play with the formula here. If Africa, select Africa, Asia. Yeah. Now, the most important question you have is, what if I want to import only a specific columns and not everything? So if we go back to our source data, let's say you just want to import only the apps and the sales amount, and you don't want to include the region. And you are asking, how can I do that with import range? So basically we have two ways. One, we can use the query, and the second one is we can use the import range itself. So let's use the import range and understand how you can import a specific columns that you are interested in and not everything that is there. So if I just write import range, let me just copy the previous formula we have already written. These are the formulas. Okay, so I just need to import first. Okay, let me import this one. Let me take this one. Now the question you have is, this one is depending on Africa, Asia, etc. So now you're asking, I don't want to import the regions. I only need the apps and the sales amount. So to achieve that, I will show you quickly. So first, what we will do is let's just import one column at a time, and then we will reach the conclusion there. So in our case, app is in AA. So that is the apps only. And let's write also another column for the sales amount. So that is it. Sales amount is in C. So it's in column C. So that is it. But you don't need to write the formulas for every columns that you need like that. Let's see how we can combine this, and you just need to write in one column and you are able to return these formulas together. Remember when we wrote the query formula, let me check here quickly. Remember when we wrote this formula, we said we need the semicolons to stack the data on top of each other. But now in our case, we don't want to stack on top of each other, but we want to put our data next to each other, which means we need to combine these two columns together. So let's take this now. Now we said if you use semicolon, this will stack your data on top of each other. But now we need to put our data next to each other, and that is when we use the comma. So if you use the comma and paste the other formula, now once you are here, this is array. And remember we said for arrays, we need to enclose everything in the curly braces. So once you enclose your array formula in curly braces, you are done. That is it. And once we click the enter, it's returning everything for us. So basically that is how you import custom columns that you need with Importrange. But this formula may get so long if you have so many columns to choose, and in that case query is the ideal options. But for four columns that you want to import, then you can easily use this Importrange formula to import columns by columns and then attach these columns together using the array functionality.